It was the best. So yeah, thanks, Adam, but also you. Nah,
Uh, I'm
nah,
not responsible for
nah.
this.
I'm just teasing, bro. Especially in our modern society, we don't like to just feel bad, and sometimes it's okay. Like if you feel sad, or if you feel low, or if you feel
No,
depressed.
this isn't taught. It is okay to feel sad.
Yeah,
It's encouraged. You should experience all your array of emotions. That's what we're here for.
absolutely. And that's what it is. It's just because it's like this pursuit of happiness, right? We just always want to be happy, 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 happy. So as soon as we feel sad or low, it's like, oh, something's wrong with me. Oh, this has been going on for a while. Then they just kind of chase that new high, you know? And I feel it, man. I was like, that was a pleasure fiend for a very long time. So now I've just learned to deal with those emotions. So even when I feel sad, even when I had like that infamous existential crisis after a boga, I could have easily have just gone and taken drugs, make myself feel better. But I'm like, nah, it's fine. I'm just gonna have to be miserable for a while. I know that my brain will rebalance eventually. You know, it's kind of going through to those dark depths sometimes. You learn a lot about yourself.
What did you learn when you went to those depths?
I learned, mate. Where do we even begin?
Well, you said you learned. Sorry, I'm not trying to quiz you. It was just the question popped in my head.
Well, I learned a lot of things. One, well, it kind of gave me a reality check on just where I
Yeah.
was going, and also the kind of darker sides of psychedelics. And I think that if that didn't happen, I would have gone towards maybe a unhealthy direction. But also just about reality, empathy, because it dissolved all those veils. You know what I mean? So like, there was a time where I couldn't even go out in public, and every time I'd walk past like a homeless person, I would just, dude, it would destroy me because I was him, right? So then I would like go through all like, oh, it was just a lot of like existential dread and death. And you know that feeling of like when your family member dies or someone that you love dies, and you get that really, oh, that gut heart sinking feeling. I was basically constantly in that state. So just over time, it just made me grateful just to be alive and human and have friends. And like I could write a book because there's so many different roads we can go down because it's obviously very layered, but it also just inspired me to go through all these different roads and just be a better person because I had to.
So you grew a lot from it. It was a
Oh,
good like growth
absolutely.
experience.
It was the best. So yeah, thanks, Adam, but also fuck you. Nah.
I'm
nah,
not responsible for
Nah,
this.
nah, nah. I'm just teasing, bro. I actually, no, for real though. That was like the out of all my trips that I've ever had, that was by far the one that produced the most tangible growth. Absolutely.
We should unprivate the video so people can see it. Just let me know when you're ready.
All right, all right. Maybe we can
No
kind of,
pressure.
maybe we can kind of redo it. Not necessarily the video, but just kind of, or maybe you can send it to me, so then that way I can kind of edit it and then put my own little twist at the end or something.
Yeah, of course.
I think just sometimes it was just hard to watch because it's like your worst. I guess you're just your lowest low, just being on YouTube.
Yeah, and
And
I'm
I'm like,
pretty sure at the time I I think I edited it in a very comedic way, so it probably didn't do the experience justice.
yeah, yeah. I think that's probably part of it as well. But I was seeing the our LSD video together, and I was like, holy shit, man, that's like it holds up really well. And it's hilarious. And it's like, yeah, doing really well. Nah, that one was fun.
I wanted to
Very
ask
weird
you.
experience though.
I wanted to ask you. Hearing your story, you talked about something about your view on psychedelics. They were really dark for a while. I think you said. Correct me if I'm wrong. What's your view like now?
Uh, I would say that psychedelics is just a double-edged sword. They can be incredibly dark for some people. It's there's no one fit answer, right? I still think that they're mysterious tools which we know like hardly anything about, and only time will tell. And for some people, I think it can help for sure. At least give them awareness of maybe certain negative behavior patterns, or maybe give them a spiritual experience so that they can love life more, right? Experience being a human. And then for other people, they get sent to a psych ward, right? So it's like, it just depends. I know that it's like context, setting, dose, where you do it.
But what's most important though is who you are. I think is the most important like ingredient in the whole set and setting thing. Like even beyond like your set, like meaning like how you feel, it's who you are deep down.
Absolutely. And some people just aren't meant to do it, and sometimes you learn the hard way. So yeah, but in terms of like, let's say, taking psychedelics constantly for spiritual growth, I think that's when things can go a bit dark. If that's what you're relying on, like that, if your framework is like, I need this to grow or I need this to heal myself, then I feel like that can set this downward spiral of, because you're putting all this weight on an external, right? So you're kind of telling your subconscious, I don't have what it takes. I don't have this within me myself. So it's something that I can see it can be very beneficial for sure, but it's got to be taken sparingly. Like, I don't believe that, like, let's say tripping every weekend can be a good thing. Even if you tick all the boxes and do all the right things, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Because it's human. It's not the psychedelic. It's human nature, right? We fall into pride eventually. And,
but I would put a caveat on that there are times when you're in more of an explorative place in your life. And when you're in that explorative zone, sometimes tripping every weekend is okay. But it usually isn't like a long-lasting endeavor. Like maybe you'll go on for like a month and then you'll take like a massive break. It's really hard to judge what is okay and what is not, because I think everybody is different. And for some people, that is actually what they need. It's really hard standing on the sidelines to say what is good or bad for a lot of these things.
Absolutely. That's why it's like it's so multi-layered, you know. And when I say like doing it every week, and I'm talking like doing it long term, I just couldn't see even in one situation someone, well, okay, maybe I'm being a bit too polarized here, but it's hard for me to see how doing psychedelics every single weekend for the rest of your life can be good for anyone. I mean,
no,
hey,
I'm not saying that. That's intense.
Yeah, I know
that's
you're
extreme.
not saying that, but that's what I'm saying. Because some people say like, oh, it's a medicine, like they'll treat it like a vitamin or something like that, when it's like it's a bit different than a vitamin.
Yeah, but some people are part of these churches. Like I know there's a big community where I live that are part of the ayahuasca church.
In Brazil, right?
The Brazilian church.
The Santo Daime, right?
Daime. That's what I was looking for. That word, Daime.
Yeah, I've heard of that one.
And they, like a lot of people that we know here, that's their medicine, and I think they have it once a month. I could be wrong. Yeah, no, I think so. It's once a month they do it, and a lot of them say that's their therapy. Like I've actually asked some of them like why they do it, and they're like, well, that's my therapy, is going to the church. But it's not the same. It's not like tripping, like in a sense. Like they sing hymns the whole time. They're there and they're singing.
Yeah,
that's not my idea of like a fun trip. So.
And they do it sitting down. They do it in a church too, because I feel like when you do it in a kind of stage where you're just doing it by yourself all the time, that's when you can you're more vulnerable to slipping into delusion, right? And because psychedelics can be alluring sometimes, you can kind of buy into your own bullshit. Whereas if you're doing it with a community and you have friends and family who care about you, they're willing to call you out on your bullshit. Because you've seen it, man, with some cult leaders who kind of get into psychedelics and they kind of lose the plot, things like that. So it depends who you are.
No,
it's an individual.
For sure. Yeah, that's what I was saying. It depends who you are. And the thing that's interesting with psychedelics is who you are can change. If I think, especially if you're a person who favors growth and learning as like the main like virtue that they're following in life, if you're that kind of person and you are constantly in a state of growth, and sometimes growth, I've talked about this before, it's not just a straight line. Sometimes you're growing, but it feels like you're doing worse. Do you know what I mean? But like if you were to zoom out, it's still growth. So sometimes it's hard to say when you're growing up, but regardless, that's not part of my point. If you're that kind of person, then I feel like psychedelics will be different for you. And I'm speaking from experience, because they've changed dramatically for me depending on what phase of your life you're in. Because now when I take psychedelics, it is so drastically different from when, say, I took them with you when we were doing that video. It is night and day different.
Yeah? In what way?
Starting from just the biggest, if I'll talk about the biggest way first, is how I'm mentally affected. I'm no longer just completely like swept away in fear and anxiety thoughts. Like I used to have I have so many stories of bad trips because when I used to take psychedelics, my mind wasn't sound, and I was still in my addiction, and I was just, I think, starting to learn how to heal. But I don't even think I was aware that I had much of a problem. I was in a big denial phase. So a lot of my trips geared towards fearful things. They made for great stories. The stories are great. Like, yeah, I'm running around naked in the forest or something. Like, they're great stories, but like, what? That's not reflective of a healthy person who's tripping.
Yeah.
When you're healthy going into it, you don't find yourself smashing on strangers' doors thinking that you're at your own house, like, and scaring the shit out of people. Like, there's, or finding yourself going to the hospital because you're losing your mind, and you think that you can walk through walls. Like, I've had so many crazy things happen, and it all stemmed from not being mentally sound to begin with, which led me to have, I had a lot of anxiety and fear that I carried with me daily. And I wasn't even consciously aware of it all. So the psychedelics would come in and they would pull out all those anxieties and fears, and I would just show it to me. And you would say, so why did you keep tripping if it was so fucking scary? Because it's polarizing, because while I had these peaks of fear, there was equal peaks that I would experience of just bliss and joy. So it was like I took the good with the bad, which is why I kept doing it.
Exactly the same with me. Yeah. It was like,
Yeah,
like
so
that underlying
now-
anxiety and depression and all this shit. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say because, again, it was all growth at the end of the day. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe I should have slowed down when I was in a vulnerable mental space. Because, yeah, I've had my fair share of nightmare trips, but also the amazing 10 out of 10 euphoric, mystical highs as well. So it's kind of a 50-50.
It's a grab bag, though. When you're in the fear, it's a grab bag. You don't know what you're gonna get. You just gotta reach in and hope your hand doesn't get bit off. You can relate to what I'm saying. So that's what's changed. So now my mind is much more clear and calm, and I've been practicing daily meditation for years now. I think it's been over 2. Yeah, it's for sure been 2 and something years. And I was almost 100% consistent with it, but I do go through periods where, like, maybe for a couple months I'm not doing it every day, but I'm still practicing it maybe 6 times. Like, I'm being very hard on myself. Sometimes I skip a day, but I've been pretty good with learning how to meditate. And I took a transcendental meditation course. Like, I've learned various ways to meditate besides just the mindfulness practice that I was doing before, just to get like a more rounded view on what meditation means to different cultures. And learning how to observe my thoughts was absolutely paramount to learning how to explore psychedelics in a much more calm and relaxed way. Because now when I have like an intense experience, I'm not saying I don't have intense experiences, but now when it's intense, knock on wood, I'm more likely to just put my head down and breathe through it, versus before I would get up and run around and try to fight it, which would make the anxiety get bigger and bigger. So it's like that little change of being able to observe and just breathe through things. And it sounds like a little change, but it's huge, because now I have the confidence and the life experience. Like, I can reflect back and be like, oh, I've been here before and I've worked through it. And it just builds your confidence level. So it's like, I'm no longer afraid.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which makes the experiences so much better.
Yeah. When you're at peace in mind and peace in your heart, it just makes dealing with stress a lot easier. Because there's a lot of things that used to bother me on a daily basis where I'm a pretty chill guy in a good way, like just being at peace, and I think meditation helps a lot. Obviously, exercising, eating well, being with family and friends and all that kind of stuff.
The discipline. You need the discipline, man.
Discipline.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because, yeah, man, like, I think even during, like, going through my dark phases, but I think as well, on top of all that, what we're talking about, I think it's because I had a YouTube channel about psychedelics. So that way, I think it was like my identity was wrapped up in this thing too, which kind of complicated things. So, like, how did that go for you?
I just dropped it. There was a period when my identity was wrapped up in it, and it kind of came to a cataclysmic end where I had what I called the worst trip of my life. And it was because the channel was alive for like a year and a half, and I thought that I was this psychedelic master because I make videos about it. And I invited 2 friends over, and we had a trip. I've talked about this trip so many times before. The one where they had me in a headlock.
Yeah.
Yeah. After that trip, I completely dropped my psychedelic ego. I was just it was killed. Like I feel like metaphorically and almost literally from being choked out so many times. Like I lost consciousness. It was killed.
Yeah,
Obliterated
got
my
humbled.
ego.
Like, I don't know shit. I had to go through that as well.
Yeah. So after that, I no like it might sound crazy, but I don't like in my head ever think that because I have a channel about psychedelics that the rules don't apply to me. Those thoughts just don't enter my head.
Absolutely.